Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I just got back from Lake Sam Rayburn in Texas a few days ago, and just kind of been working around the house trying to get a few things caught up from being gone. But anyway, had a good start to the year. Finished in 52nd place, and I'll kind of break down my practice and how the tournament went. So doing a little research before I went down to Rayburn, from what I had been seeing, there was not near as much grass on the lake as what there normally would be this time of year. I think they had a little bit of a flood last summer, and I think that put a damper on some of the grass. But I can't remember if I said in some of last year's videos that I really struggle with 2 days of practice. For whatever reason. Used to when we had three, I could practice good 2 days, and then I'd have just like a helter-skelter day on my third day. Well, last year, I'd have one good day of practice, and instead of having the second good day of practice, that turned into my helter-skelter day, and I really kind of struggle with that. So it's something I've been thinking about all year long, and something I'm working through and trying to be better at practice. And and whenever you've got a lake that's I think 110,000 acres that Rayburn is, there's just no way you can look at all the lake in 2 days of practice. You can spend one day in just one little creek arm. So I kind of decided I was going to stay, mostly mid-lake, Beach, Caney area. That's kind of where I wanted to spend most of my practice. So the first practice morning, I ended up going in 5 fingers, and actually I think I caught one on my first cast on a Carolina rig. It was just a little non-keeper, but it seemed like there's quite a few fish in there. I think I caught one keeper in there, but I caught like 7 or 8 fish in there. Saw a little schooling activity. And then from there, I went to Coleman, I went to Beach, I went to Caney. And, like I say, a few of those creeks had some grass in them. Last tournament I fished at Rayburn, I fished in Caney. And back to place, in those places where I caught them last time, there wasn't any grass. I kind of made a quick pass through there with some rattle traps and chatterbaits and stuff, but I didn't have any bites. So on day 2 practice, I decided I wanted to look a little deeper. So I got out on the main lake, and I found, I probably had 5 or 6 points that I was, could get some bites on. One point in particular seemed like, if I got bit, it was like a, 2 1/4 to 2 3/4 pound fish. Seemed to be a little bit better quality. And then one of the other points I pulled up in practice, and I had 3 bites on 3 casts, but they were all like just keepers. So, and then right at the end of the second day of practice, I decided I was going to go back shallow again, and I picked up a rattle trap, and I caught like 5 or 6 keeper fish in the last couple hours of practice. So going into the tournament, there definitely seemed to be a morning bite and then a later afternoon bite, and not a lot in the middle, at least for me. So my game plan was to start deep. And my boat was sitting in like 40 foot, and catch them, anywhere from 27 to probably 35 maybe. Was to start out on the one point where I thought those little bit better quality fish were. And then, go to my second point. If I could catch, I thought, 2 or 3 keepers pretty early, I could go shallow the rest of the day, keep a rattle trap or chatterbait in my hand, and try to upgrade a little bit. Because it seemed to me that, the fish that I did catch up shallow were, I don't know, I just thought maybe a little chunkier for whatever reason. But so day 1, I think I was boat 50 something. I can't remember for sure. So decent draw. So I get to my spot, and I was throwing, for my deep stuff, I was throwing a Carolina rig and a drop shot. In practice, I drag the Carolina rig around, maybe try to find the key areas, and then go back with the drop shot, kind of try to, seem like to be a little easier to catch them on the drop shot. So anyways, I started off on the first point. I actually caught one on my first cast that morning. Just a nice little keeper. About 10 minutes later, I caught my second. My third fish of the day, which for whatever reason I did not get on video. I've had a few issues with my GoPro here lately, so I don't know what's up with that. But hopefully we'll get that rectified soon. My third fish was like 4 1/4. I really wasn't expecting that, on that spot. But I fished around there a little bit more, and we took off at 7. By 8:20, I think I had my limit. And from there, I was debating on whether to even go to the next point or not, because it's about 6-7 miles away, which is not that far. But I thought since it was so early in the morning that I could still run up there, and I still have plenty of time to go shallow the rest of the day. So I run up to the second point. I'm fishing around. Had one little peck on my drop shot. Just getting ready to leave, and just about ready to pull the trolling motor, and my drop shot gets heavy, and I set the hook and I catch like a 5.5. So at this point, I figured I had 15 pounds. At that point, I decided I'm going to go shallow. So I spent like the next 3 to 4 hours shallow, and I never had a bite. I don't know if it's just that midday lull, or what was going on. I did have one brush pile in a creek. Is probably about 20 foot of water, that I caught a decent keeper on practice. I did run in there, and I caught another keeper in there, but it didn't help me. So I think I had a 3:30 weigh in on day one. So about 1 o'clock, I decided that I was going to go fish deep again. But I really didn't want to go back to the 2 points where I, caught my fish, because one, I didn't know how many fish were there, and two, I didn't want to burn any 2-pounders that, I might need for day 2. So I kind of went just in practicing mode, search mode, and I fished a number of points, and then with about an hour to go, I went kind of back down by takeoff, down by the dam at the mouth of, I don't know if it's Tiger Creek or somewhere out there, and I stopped on a point, and I caught I think 4 in a row on a drop shot, but they were non-keepers. But they seem to be stacked up there pretty well. And anyways, I just went ahead and moved on to the next point, and then it's time for weigh in. So I weighed in 16 pounds even on day 1. I was sitting in 11th. So after my practice, cause not having a good bite in practice, it was nice to catch a good bag, to start off the season. Just kind of get the monkey off the back. And so day 2, which should have been Friday, was canceled due to wind. We, pretty much everybody was put in early in the morning on Friday. They were calling. It was pretty windy all night, and there's a northwest wind. And when you're going out of the south into the lake on Rayburn, that usually means you're gonna have some pretty big waves there at the lower end. So they put us in a little holding pattern for a while on Friday morning, and then the tournament director and finally ended up taking a boat out, and he rounded the point out there, and he saw enough, and made a call to cancel day 2. I think it's a good call. You know, would I have went fishing? Absolutely. Would it have sucked, you know, trying to get to where I was going? Sure. But I mean, I think I could have if I had to. But anyway, so, on Friday, just kind of hung out at the house and, re-rigged a few things that I wouldn't, didn't know if I'd use on our next day or not. So on Saturday, which is now day 2, I was boat 150 something and had a 4:30 check-in time. Run to my first point, same as I did the first day. And, I knew after about 20 minutes of fishing, I did not have a bite. I knew something was different. I didn't see hardly any bait at all. So I don't know if the heavy winds from the previous day pushed the bait around, or really what was going on for that matter. So I go to my second point where I caught the 5.5. Fished around there for 20 or 30 minutes, never had a bite. And then, so I had some other places where, I also caught, some keepers in practice, nothing big. So I just kind of went practicing for a little while and, hit a few of those spots that I didn't hit on day 1. And I caught one little 13-incher. And, the time just keeps on a-ticking. And, 10 o'clock, no fish. 11 o'clock, no fish. 12 o'clock, no fish. 1 o'clock, no fish. I think I've zeroed twice in my career. One was the very first FLW event I fished on Guntersville back in, I think, 2009. And then the second one, I don't know the year, but I know it was out of Table Rock, and it was like super, super cold. And it only took like 8.5 or 9 pounds maybe to get a check for 2 days. So the fishing was pretty lousy out there. So, that's kind of creeping in the back of my head, but, I always feel like I'm going to catch them at some point. And also it wouldn't be the first time, at Rayburn that, by the grace of God, I pulled up on the right spot, at the last hour or two and, caught something. So, still wasn't mentally beat. It was definitely stressful, but, just keep your head down and keep searching. So I went back deep for a little while. I thought, well, I'm going to try to go shallow. Well, total, there's probably 500 boats on the lake on Saturday. There's like 2 or 3 other tournaments going on. I mean, just anywhere you want to go, grass related, probably or not, had boats in it. So there's a couple places I wanted to go. I just kind of went in and made U-turns because, it was just kind of like taking a number, and I just wasn't going to fish like that. So, just kind of working through my process, I've never really seen any grass on the lower end of Rayburn, down by the dam. So I thought, I'm going to run back down to that point that I found on day 1 where I caught like 3 or 4 short fish in a row. So I end up running down there, and by this time it's like 3 o'clock and I still have 0. So I run down there, and I finally get a bite, and I catch my first keeper, and it was 3:15 when I caught my first keeper. So at that point I knew what wasn't blanking, which was a good feeling. But it kind of stunk after after having a good day 1 to really struggle the way I did on day 2. So I fished around that point a little bit more, nothing. So I'm looking on my Garmin unit. I run the Lakeview G3 mapping, and if you don't have that, definitely something you want to get. Just fantastic mapping. I saw another point that kind of looked good to me. That was pretty close. So I run over there, fire out my Carolina rig, first cast, catch a keeper. Nothing big, just another 14 and a quarter. I'm like, okay. So fish around there for another 5 or 10 minutes, nothing. So I run to the next point, and I pull up there and I'm just getting ready to fire out my Carolina rig, and I scan my Panoptics around and I see a brush pile. And so I pick up my drop shot, flip over in the brush pile, catch my third keeper. It's probably a little over 2 pounds. I'm like, heck, I could still get a check maybe. Because I knew I probably had 5 pounds at that point, 5.5, and I thought, if I catch 6, 7 pounds, I'll probably get paid. So fish around that point a little bit more, then I run to the next point. Pretty much the same scenario. I pull up on the point, kind of scan my Panoptics around. I see a little brush out there. I see a fish on it. Flip my drop shot over there. He goes down on it. And at first, usually when they start going down on it, they get pretty quick. And, I was like, I was frustrated that he didn't bite it. Anyways, I just kind of held it there and I just kind of shook it in place. And all of a sudden it just got heavy and I catch my 4th keeper. It's probably the best one of the day. At this point, I was pretty certain I was getting paid, which was, such a roller coaster on how I felt about 45 minutes prior to that. So from there, I ran to the next point I saw on the map that looked like what I was looking for, and I pull up there, scan around with my Panoptics, see a brush pile. I saw a couple small fish on there, and I ended up catching like 1 or 2 like 13.5 inch fish off of it, non-keepers. And at that point, I looked down at the clock and it's time to go. So I've got about a 4-minute run back, 3 or 4 minute run back to weigh in. And literally it was like 4:30, right when I set the boat down. So I pushed it pretty much to all the time I had. I just needed about another 5 or 10 minutes. And I really feel like I could have, found another brush pile and got another bite down there. Anyway, overall, it was a good start to the year. Not a great finish, but not a bomb either. Just a good, solid, way to start the year and cash a check. I guess kind of the moral of the story is, I'm sure you've heard Mike Iaconelli say 1,000 times, never give up. But that's really kind of the, what happened on day 2. Just keep your head down, keep plugging, and David Dudley, told me a long time ago, hey, if you're not getting bit where you're at, just because you have not practiced over there, what's the worst that can happen? You go over there and not catch anything. So never be scared to practice during your event. I can't stress that enough. I would say at least half of my tournament days are dedicated to fishing new water that I did not look at in practice. And I've had some of my best days on the water because the stuff you find during the tournament day, that's all new. It's not 1 day old information, 2 day old information, 3 day old information. This happening right then, and and that's when you can catch some of those really good sacks. So never be afraid to practice during the event. Anyway, the two baits, like I said that I caught them on. I caught 8 out of my 9 fish on a drop shot with the 3/8 weight. I was on a 6-inch Robo Worm MM2 color, with 12-pound braid and with a 10-pound leader. Fished on a Denali N3 rod. Then on my Carolina rig, I had just a 3/4 ounce weight, and I was fishing a Zoom speed crawl on that. To me, the reason I went with the speed crawl initially is because it's just a bite getter. You know, like I say, the whole goal, at least you know, going into it, was you know, to catch keepers to start off with. You know, excuse me. Now after I had a limit, you know, I did throw some other things, some bigger stuff, but you know, I did not get a bite on the Carolina rig on day 2, I don't think. But like I say, it is pretty much all about the drop shot. You know, kind of what I have discerned about Rayburn is, you know, I'm not saying that those fish never get out. You know, you can't catch a giant sack out in 30 and 40, but it seems to me that, you know, a lot of times those, you know, big sacks are, you know, coming out of, you know, anywhere from 8 to, you know, 15 in some of those ditches. And I just didn't fish enough. I don't think I fished enough of those ditches in practice. You know, that's just where they live. And, you know, definitely when I go back, I'm going to definitely be spending some more time looking around at some of those drains. Anyway, on the Carolina rig, I was throwing Denali. It's a new Lithium Pro. I literally just picked those up before I went to Rayburn, and man, those things feel awesome. They look super slick, clean, and I think I'm going to be really, you know, happy with the new Lithium Pros from Denali Rods. So, you know, if you haven't seen those yet, you know, go to denalirods.com and you can take a look at those. They are available on Tackle Warehouse or off the website, I believe. And I should be getting some discount cards from Denali, a discount code. So hopefully look for that maybe on my next video, and I'll be able to hook you up with a discount. You know, next on the schedule is Harris Channel Lakes in Florida. You know, I'm going to try to get down there for a few days to do some scouting around. I'm not going to do any fishing, just purely want to go down and look around. You know, I've been there, you know, 2 or 3 times over the years. Never really had a good finish there. So, you know, I've got to still have yet to crack that code. So, you know, that's on the to-do list. Other than that, you know, that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, comments, you know, be sure to drop a question below. I'm going to go ahead and include what limited film I had from day 1 after this, because on day 2 everything just happened so quick. Right at the end of the day, I just didn't feel like I had time to really mess with my camera. On day 2 I was just too worried about, you know, just trying to catch a fish. So like I say, I've got, I think, 3 or 4 fish catches from day 1. I know one of them's a good one. So anyway, hope you enjoy it, and thanks for watching, and I'll catch you later.
on. Big one.
Look at that one. How about that trade?